He had waited all evening for the sound of the front door. The quiet hum of her apartment, broken only by the ticking of the clock on the wall, seemed to echo the anticipation building in her chest. The evening had dragged, slow and teasing. She'd lit candles hours ago, their warm amber glow dancing over the cream-colored walls and casting soft shadows across the floor. When the door finally opened, her breath caught. He entered quietly, his eyes meeting hers across the room, and something unspoken passed between them. Something heavy, magnetic. Neither of them said a word. She didn't ask how his day had been. He didn't explain why he was late. It didn't matter. Not tonight. He walked slowly toward her, his tall frame soaking in the soft candlelight, his face unreadable, calm, but his eyes burned with something primal. She stood still in front of the fireplace, barefoot in a satin slip that clung to her like melted silk. Her heart was thudding, each beat a drum of expectation. He didn't say anything, just gently took off her clothes. He started with her shoulders, his fingers slipping the thin straps of her slip down, brushing her skin like a breeze. The fabric fell silently to the floor, pooling around her ankles. She stood before him, bare, vulnerable, exposed, but never more powerful. His touch was reverent, like she was something holy. Like her body was a secret he'd waited his entire life to learn. He leaned in, his lips brushing just below her ear. Still, no words. Just breath, heat, hands tracing the lines of her waist, her hips down the curve of her back. She trembled, but not from cold. She watched his eyes, dark, focused, full of heat. As he stepped back slightly to look at her, he traced the line between her breasts with the back of his fingers, slow and deliberate, like he was drawing her from memory. Then he kissed her collarbone, a soft press of lips that made her knees weak. She didn't move. She couldn't. He slipped his fingers behind her neck, drew her to him, and kissed her. Deep, slow, consuming. Her body melted into his like wax, her hands moving over his chest, feeling the tension in his muscles, the slow rise and fall of his breath. She unbuttoned his shirt, fingers brushing his skin with every tug. She had kissed him 100 times, but this one felt different. Slower, more patient, hungrier. It was not desperation that fueled him, but devotion worship. When his shirt fell away, she kissed his chest, dragging her lips down slowly. He inhaled sharply, still silent, his hand gently cradling the back of her head, as if to steady himself. Her kisses moved lower until he lifted her back up into his arms and carried her to the bed. The sheets were cool against her back. He hovered over her, just looking, his eyes scanning her face like she was the answer to a question he hadn't dared ask. And still, he didn't speak. But his body did. He kissed every inch of her like he'd missed it for years. Like she wasn't just beautiful. She was his. And he wanted to remind her of that with every touch. His lips traced her neck, the curve of her shoulder, the dip just above her collarbone. His hands moved with expert grace. Never rushed, always careful. He explored her like poetry, rhythmic, deliberate, unforgettable. She gasped when his tongue found the soft spot just below her rib cage, and he smiled against her skin. A small, knowing smile. She arched under his touch, her fingers clutching at the sheets as he moved lower. His pace never changed. He didn't need words. His silence spoke volumes. It said, "You're mine. I know your body. I know your size. I know what makes your eyes flutter closed and your fingers twist in my hair. I know what makes you moan without meaning to." He worshipped her slowly, like time didn't exist. When he finally entered her, it was like sliding into something sacred. Her breath hitched, and he kissed her again, deep and open, their bodies moving as one. There was no noise but the soft rustle of sheets, the low sound of skin meeting skin, and the occasional whisper of her name falling from her lips like a prayer. They moved together, slow and steady, as though every second counted, as though every moment was its own universe. He held her hands beside her head, their fingers intertwined, and gazed into her eyes while their bodies melted into one rhythm. She lost herself in the way he moved. The power of it, the precision, the softness wrapped in strength. Every thrust was a confession. Every kiss a promise. She felt herself unraveling beneath him, Not just physically but emotionally. Her walls, her doubts, her fears, he was peeling them all away. Just like her clothes. Slowly. Gently. Until all that was left was raw truth. And when she finally let go, when her body gave in and shuddered beneath him, she cried out. Not because it hurt, but because it healed. He held her then close, his mouth buried in her neck, his body trembling against hers. She felt his breath stutter as he climaxed, quietly, deeply, completely. He didn't roar. He didn't groan. He just let it move through him like a wave, holding her tighter with each swell. Even then, he didn't speak. He just kissed her again. Long, slow, and full of everything he hadn't said. Afterward, they lay tangled together, her head on his chest, his arms wrapped around her, their breaths slowly sensing. The candles were still burning. The room was warm with their shared heat. Finally, she whispered, "Say something." He looked down at her, brushing a damp strand of hair from her cheek, his voice low and rough with emotion. "I didn't need to." She closed her eyes, a small smile curling on her lips. Because he was right. He didn't say anything. He just showed her. And it was more than enough.